Hey, welcome back, Weather Junkies. I'm your host, meteorologist Greg Majeski, your trusted weather source here, bringing you the weather without all that social media hype here on your January 31st, 2025. Let's go and take a look at what we're tracking here for today as we're looking at a false spring ahead. Yeah, some big time warm up here across parts of the country. In some cases, up to 30 degrees above normal for this time of year. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to give you an update on the latest Arctic invasions timeline. We'll see about when that cold air is going to be charging back into the parts of the United States. So don't get used to the warm weather, folks. It's going to be flipping on you. And then we're also going to be talking about multiple snow events. I was looking through the models there. It looks like we got maybe 5 or 6 different separate snow events going on. Nothing really big, but they're going to be out there for sure. So we'll take a look at where it's going to fall and how much snow you can expect in your areas. Now, before we get going, first, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please do so at this time. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future content. And as always, please leave a comment, give me a thumbs up down below. It does help with the almighty YouTube algorithm. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're seeing this morning. We got one storm system here in the east, bringing some rains here from the Midwest back into the southeast, also here across parts of Missouri as well. We also have another storm system out here on the west coast moving on in from Northern California all the way up into Washington State, and then there's another one behind this one. So this is just the first of a series of storms that will be moving in on the west coast. And yes, eventually we'll get some more rains down into the Southern California area as well. Now, as we look at our current watches and warnings, a little pocket of winter weather here across New York and Pennsylvania there. Numerous ones out here across Washington State, Idaho, Montana. The pink ones, that's your winter storm warnings out there. Got a couple of pockets of some flash flood watches, I should say, here across portions of Illinois and over toward West Virginia as well for this morning, as well as some fog. That's what that gray is there in the middle of the country. All right, so here's our storm system here in the middle of the country that's moving up here toward the north and east. Not overly cold for a lot of the country. I see there's a below 5 number there just north of the border there, but really not any real big Arctic intrusions. There's a -4, so you get these little pockets here and there. But again, no real Arctic air mass in the United States yet. Now we got the rains here, and also got the rains out here on the west coast, and it's going to be coming down in buckets, especially up here in Northern California. We can go into Eureka. This area there in Northern California heading into Redding are going to be seeing a lot of heavy rain as well as feet of snow, and I mean big time feet of snow there across Northern California over the next couple of weeks if this weather pattern stays locked in. So definitely looking at a wet and rainy start here on the west coast. Now let's go take a look at the latest from the Storms Prediction Center. We do have one little pocket of severe weather we're going to watch here just for today. There's really no other thunderstorm development expected over the next couple of days. And this will be with that front moving here across the east, as we do have a little pocket of marginal severe weather there across portions of Alabama, southwest Georgia, and going into the Florida Panhandle for today. There is a very low tornado risk with this as well, only running about 2%, but I do want to highlight this for you here, as you can see that in that same general zone. So just watch out for a few hefty thunderstorms down there. Nothing too widespread as this frontal system starts to clear the area. It should be a nice weekend setting up for areas there across the southeast. The next thing we're going to be watching is the heavy rain threat. We do have a couple of pockets we're watching here across West Virginia and across areas of Illinois near the Chicagoland area, and that's with that storm system that's moving through the east. And then it's going to stay very active out here on the west coast, especially up here across Northern California here, as we look at your day 2 and day 3 outlook here on your excessive rain forecast for potential flooding. So as we go ahead and take this forward here, you look at that again, you see that slight risk for heavy rains kind of right around the San Francisco Bay Area there, and that'll continue into your day 3 in the same area as well. So it doesn't really move all that much. Again, still just looking at that area there in Northern California, getting inundated with that onshore flow, kind of a definitely a Pineapple Express of moisture that's going to continue to hit that part of the country here through this upcoming weekend. Now, as far as your 3 to 7 day hazards outlook, this will be updated here later today. But you're definitely seeing some cold air intrusion up here toward the north as well as into the northeast. And all this tan out here is basically a very gusty wind. So obviously with that parade of storm systems coming in there, there'll be some gusty winds, some heavy rains, and the interior sections of the mountains are going to see some pretty definitely some hefty snows coming on there. We'll look at some of those snow totals here in just a second. So let's go ahead and look at the short range forecast. We're looking at the high resolution model data here as we're going to be tracking 2 storm systems. We've got one here obviously in the east that's going to be kind of exiting out. There'll be a little bit of snow on the northern part of this, especially across areas of New York State. And then we got the onshore flow coming in here from Washington State and Northern California. That'll be tracking inland as well as we go through the next 40 hours. So let's go ahead and watch this closely here throughout the day on Friday as this rain continues to push up into the northeast. You see the snow is increasing there across California, across Idaho as well. Very snowy there going into Montana as we go into the late afternoon, evening hours. Notice the snow here breaking up here across the interior sections of New York State into areas of Vermont, New Hampshire, with that storm system moving on there. A little rain still lingering back behind across Tennessee as we go into the evening hours for your Friday. Going into your Saturday, though, it starts to exit on off the East Coast. Things begin to improve there across the eastern part of the United States. Should shape up for a pretty nice weekend. Still looking at persistent onshore flow out here on the West Coast. Still staying pretty active there. You see in the interior snows there, little snows up here across the Canadian border there, across North Dakota and into areas of Minnesota. And this will continue to move on inland there, bringing the snows here across the Great Lakes as we go and throughout the day on your Saturday. So this goes throughout the day on your Saturday afternoon and going into Saturday night, and it ends about midnight. So that's what we're looking at for the next day and a half there with the precipitation. So the east looks like a pretty nice weekend, except for areas across the Great Lakes dealing with some snow, and we'll continue that active weather there on the West Coast as well. So let's look at the jet stream pattern here as we're going to be looking at, again, a jet stream that's not really phased together. So you got different jet streams really not working in tandem. And as a result of that, you're not getting any real big storm systems to kind of develop in here. So you got one jet here, you got one jet up here. That's, again, they're not really kind of working together here. So as we go through time on this, what we're going to see is a series of storms that will be moving on in. But as we go into next week, the big story is going to be the fact that we're going to be seeing this zonal flow, and all the cold air is pretty much locked up here toward the north. So the areas down here in the deep south next week, going from Monday through Thursday, we're talking about some big time warm temperatures. And when I show you the temperature anomaly map, you understand what I'm talking about here. So this is going to hold for most of next week. We got this area of high pressure down here, definitely keeping us very mild with a west wind here blowing across the deep south. So temperatures well above normal expected here for next week. And then it looks like we're going to see things begin to change as we go into the following weekend. Now, the timing on the next Arctic outbreak is slowed down just a little bit here as we're going to see this come in for this weekend. So it's going to be a little bit slower to get into the south, maybe not getting until the 9th, and maybe a little bit delayed a little bit. We were dealing with this high pressure ridging down here toward the south. It's kind of running up against that jet stream there. So that kind of causes some headaches with the timing of the cold air, especially on how far south it's going to go. And we'll see how this kind of works out for us. But you definitely see we got a good tap here. You see the polar vortex here, polar vortex kind of dropping down, a little piece of it here, dropping down here toward the Canadian border here. And we're going to see a pretty nice little cold shot coming down, going toward the 10th, 11th, and 12th. So definitely seeing colder temperatures there across the east. And then we'll see another storm system, these parade of storm systems kind of coming on the west coast. This backbending jet stream is what they call kind of a positive tilt jet stream. You really don't get any real big spin ups. When it's in a negative configuration, that's when you really get the big ones. So not really in the proper configuration to get anything really big to develop here over the next couple of weeks. What we are going to see is a series of smaller storms. Remember I said we're going to see multiple snow events. That's what we're going to be seeing for the most part. So let's look at the precipitation. We'll kind of break this down as far as the snow events are concerned. So here's the first one, obviously, coming in for this weekend. We got the snows here across the interior sections of New England, and we got the snows out here on the west coast, obviously. Pay attention to where that freezing line is. I mean, it stays pretty much well north here going into next week. Obviously, with especially the southern tier really warming up very nicely here. So the northern tier states will continue to see the little snow events. Here's another little snow event here coming across the Great Lakes. We were tracking this weekend. Basically, as these systems are kind of riding in across that fast-moving jet stream, moving across the northern tier. So going into next week, looking pretty quiet for most of the country. Again, we're expecting it to be pretty warm and mild here going through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week with temperatures well above normal. And it looks like we continue with that active weather. The good news is, look, this is very good news going into next week. You're seeing this rain getting down towards Southern California. And this is the first of a few storm systems, I think, that'll come down that way to add some additional rain. In fact, I'm probably going to show you the rain forecast. I'll take you all the way out to the 2 weeks. Normally I only do 10 days, but I'm going to just take it out to 2 weeks to see if that's going to be a trend here to help Southern California out with the rainy weather they definitely need. So as we go further into the week, obviously with a big warm up here, this is mostly freezing rain up in this area because of the warm, mild temperatures that are pushing out ahead of this going in toward Wednesday, the 5th and 6th of next week. So that'll be out ahead of that next little cold shot coming on down. So we got some cold weather here coming back into New England as we go toward the Friday the 7th. So that freezing line starting to sink a little bit further south, a little unsettled here across the deep south with some showers down this way going in toward the 7th. And then we'll watch another system come on in and bring another shot of snows there across the northeast. Boy, they've had a very snowy winter, that is for sure so far. And then we'll watch this frontal system. Yesterday, the front was showing it already cleared here by this time, heading up here toward the 9th. So it's a little bit delayed from the yesterday's model that I was looking at during the afternoon. So this finally comes on in. It's delayed a few days, and it's delayed because of that high pressure ridging down here in the Gulf that's kind of slowing it down just a little bit. So it looks like what we thought was coming in on the 9th across the southeast, that's going to be probably more toward the 11th and 12th as that front moves on in and finally clears on through. So by the time we get to the 12th, you notice that freezing line, the 540 line, is way further south than where it's been running, especially up to next week. Got another storm system out here on the west coast as well. That one's going to drop down into Southern California and provide some more heavy rains here potentially as we are looking at going in toward the middle of the month. Now, keep in mind, again, anything beyond 7 days is a projection, as I always like to remind folks. But it looks like that active weather pattern on the west coast, the model's been pretty consistent on that, so that's a good news to see. And I'm telling you, this area here across California, the Sierra Nevada, boy, they're going to get blasted with some heavy snows with this thing here over the next 2 weeks if this pattern holds true. Looks like we do see things quickly warm up. So that cold shot coming in for the 11th and 12th, it warms right back up as we head toward the Valentine's Day on the 14th. All right, let's go ahead and look at the precipitation here. We're going to be talking about the rainfall. We'll focus first here on the first 72 hours over the next 3 days. Kind of take you through the weekend here so we can kind of see where the rain's going to fall. So we've got the rain here in the east, obviously. We're waiting that storm system to clear out. Look at these heavy rain amounts out here on the west coast. California all the way up to Washington State, looking very wet and rainy out there indeed. Now let's go out for the next 10 days. We'll see how this looks out. We'll go out to about 240. So you can see definitely getting some more rains here in the east, filling in here. Still that dry pattern here across the southwest. That's been holding true here for a while, really for most of the winter. Starting to get some rains here across Southern California. And I'm going to go ahead and take this all the way out to the 360. And you look at the heavy rains really piling on out here in the west. And this is some great news to see that, where they definitely need the rainfall out there in Southern California. In fact, let's go and take a look at that real quick. I'll look at the western region here. And what it's kicking out here is showing us rainfall here in Southern California, 2 to 3 inches down here toward Los Angeles. That'd be great. But notice up here, it's showing 13 inches of water equivalent there in the interior of the Sierra Nevada. That is some serious, serious snows, folks. That is quite a bit. And we'll take a look at that here in just a second. Let's go look at the snows. We'll go over to that one. Again, we got multiple snow events here charging across the country, but it still looks like the interior sections of the mountains and the northeast will continue to be the prime snow zones here. Again, we got a little snow here for this weekend. Let me go and take this out to 72 hours first, as we do with the water here. We'll go up to 72 here again. We'll take it right there. So going into this weekend, you get the little snow across New England. You see in the interior sections here of the west here getting the snows, a little bit across the Great Lakes going for the next 3 days through Sunday. Then as we go on out to 240, we'll take us out to 240 here. Again, we get some more snows there across New England. There's a surprise. It looks like it's just stayed north of the big cities. Look, Boston's going to be on the edge of that. You notice when you start coming off the charts here, you start seeing some heavy snows out there into the west, especially across the Sierra Nevada. And I'll take this all the way out to 360. Just so I want to highlight again that heavy snow total. We saw the precipitation total showing 13 inches. So what does that equate to as far as actual snow cover out there in the west? Let's take a look at that. Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's definitely very high. Look at the 80 inches of snow. There's 60 inches of snow right there. You got 50 here for the interior of Idaho. That's pretty impressive for the interior section, seeing that. So when you see in snows that are kind of lighting up the bottom of the chart down there, you know you're dealing with some several feet of some white powder there for the ski resorts and everything out there in the west. So let's go ahead and talk about the temperature anomaly map. This one's going to be really interesting because, again, I've been talking about that false spring. Okay, that's basically what we're seeing. So let's go take this through it going into next week, especially. So got this one little cold shot for New England here going in toward your Saturday and Sunday. We've been tracking that one for a little while. Above normal here across the big portion of the middle of the country. But when you really take this into next week, this thing really gets very interesting. You can see how warm it's going to get here across the big part of the country. You're going to stop right here. I mean, you're talking about temperatures here across the south running some 30 degrees above normal. You got a cold shot kind of hugging into Montana there. Going in towards your Monday. But let's go ahead and continue to take this through next week. It's just very interesting to me to see how warm it is here across the big part of the country here. I mean, look at this. I mean, just very, very warm here. Look at this. This is going toward Thursday, going across the Midwest here across the deep south. As we do have that frontal system, it's going to try to chip away to that high pressure ridging that's going to be down across the southeast. It's going to kind of keep that warm air very slow from getting on in there. But again, going into towards Saturday, you can see that frontal system trying to chip away here. Very sharp divide there as that cold air starts to come on in, going in toward the 8th and 9th. It's going to be very slow to clear here across the southeast, so not quite as fast as it was showing yesterday. But there's the front going in toward the 9th, and it's just going to hang out there a little bit. You notice it's still staying red here across the southeast. It's still running a little bit above normal as that cold air is going to linger a little bit before it kind of charges on in. And there it goes, finally getting in there as we get toward the 12th. So by the 12th, notice a big part of the country here is seeing temperatures below normal. Now, across the east, this is definitely going to be a hit and run. So it's going to be there on the 12th. You see it's below normal, still there below normal on Wednesday and Thursday. And then we start seeing things quickly begin to modify as we go toward the 14th, seeing that warm-up taking place as that cold air kind of gets squished on out as things begin to rebound here. But then there's another pocket of cold air here across the Canada and in toward the northern portion of the United States. This definitely looks like a typical La Nina weather to me, where the cold weather is setting up there. And we do have a weak La Nina in place, but this is what it reminds me of. It's definitely something what we were kind of expecting in January, but didn't see because of the polar vortex being weakened and kind of doing some crazy things through the month of January. So let's go ahead and look at the Climate Prediction Center here. Let's look at what their outlook is showing. Again, that pattern that we were just discussing here. Cold here across the northern tier, the northwest, warm here in the east. This is going out from the 5th through the 9th. Now, they do take the cold air and move it a little bit further south, still keeping it warm here on the southeast. And after seeing what I've been seeing a couple of these model runs with that kind of that high pressure here to the south, which is kind of ridging northward, it keeps going back and forth. I can understand where they're kind of holding on to the mild weather here across the southeast, even though the European continues to want to try to bring in the cold air down there. It's just been delaying it some degree. So until it kind of locks in a little bit, we get a little bit closer, we'll see how this kind of holds up. Now, going up through the 5th to the 9th, obviously a progressive pattern here. We've been talking about multiple snow events, multiple rain chances here, except for the southwest that continues to stay on the dry side there. It's good to see the rain getting into Southern California there, 5th to the 9th, and yeah, it kind of holds true here. Very wet here across the middle of the country here for Ohio back in toward the Tennessee River Valley. Still dry across the southwest as we go from the 7th through the 13th. So active weather pattern here. No super big storms coming at us. Also not seeing any severe weather potential out of what we just had yesterday there across Louisiana. But I think the opportunities are going to be there, especially when you're talking about temperatures being well above normal where they should be. So whenever these air masses play bumper cards with each other, you always can run the risk of getting some thunderstorms to fire up, and then, of course, obviously severe weather. So we'll know more as we kind of watch as these smaller systems evolve and progress along the jet stream to see exactly where we might see some severe weather later in the month of February, especially across the deep south as we go deeper into the month. All right, that's y'all's update here for today. I do appreciate y'all checking out the channel. And again, I'm going to be making some wholesale changes to the display. I haven't done it just yet. I'm going to get to it. Going to redo the format here a little bit just to kind of mess around and see if we can kind of help the channel grow a little bit more. Probably going to fall more in line with what everybody else is doing. I kind of like the format, but it's really not working to help grow the channel, which is always the purpose of these things. You want to try to get the biggest audience possible to kind of serve the people. And if the people don't like it, you got to make a change, or you're an idiot and you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. So I'll make some changes. We'll make it look a little more uniform of what everybody else in the YouTube universe is doing. So anyway, that is your update for now. You guys take it easy, be good, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next update. You guys take it easy. Bye-bye for now.